With this scene of the faithful at prayer during the communion service, we begin our story. The minister of the church, holding the bread and wine before his congregation, calls to mind an event that goes back 2,000 years in history to a little room in Jerusalem, where Christ distributed bread and wine to his disciples as symbols of his body and blood during what we know as the Last Supper. Hours later, he made the supreme sacrifice of giving up his life for the salvation of mankind. But true to prophecy, he rose again on the third day. Before his ascension into heaven, he visited and spoke to his disciples, and he commanded, "All power in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations." In obedience to the Great Commission, the disciples of Jesus went out to the four corners of the earth to spread his gospel. One of them set out to India and landed at Nalloor, an important seaport of the Chera kings in the year 52 AD. This disciple was Thomas, later to be known as the Great Apostle of India. He traversed the coast and then turned to the interior with the good news of the Lord. A few Nambudiri Brahmins were the first to receive the new light in the land of Malabar.
Mar Thoma Syrian Malankara vannu Malayalam nadannu karam kotti ninnu Karthavin vaartha ee naattinnudamnu Varghese gopura vaadil thurannu.
Beginning with Nalloor, St. Thomas established 7 churches and a chapel, and appointed ministers from 4 prominent Nambudiri families. Out of the 7 churches, 6 are along the seacoast, and only one, that at Nalloor, is in the Ghat region near Sabarimala, the Hindu center of pilgrimage. Efforts were made recently to rebuild the church. Initial opposition to this was overcome by the magnanimous gesture from Hindu and Christian leaders, as well as the Kerala government. The new church was built in 1984 and dedicated by all Christian denominations. Thomas continued his ministry in and around Malabar, and then proceeded to the east coast of India, arriving finally at Mylapore in Madras. While many accepted the new faith, Thomas faced opposition from others. He hid in a cave from his enemies and finally died a martyr's death at St. Thomas Mount in Madras, and is believed buried at Mylapore. The faith he preached began to spread. It was lighted to lighten. Those who followed this faith came to be known as Mar Thoma or St. Thomas Christians. In AD 345, a group of 400 Syrians, led by Thomas of Cana, migrated to Malabar. The Syrians got along well with the St. Thomas Christians, who were by then popularly known as Nazranigal, the followers of the man of Nazareth. The arrival of the Syrians strengthened the Nazarani community, who through the use of Syriac in their worship earned the name Syrian Christians. The 6th century saw the arrival of the Nestorian Christians from Persia as part of a missionary movement. Their teachings were accepted by the St. Thomas Christians. The Nestorian influence had a strong but pleasing effect on the St. Thomas Christians until the 15th century. The year 1498 witnessed the discovery of the sea route to India by the famed Portuguese explorer Vasco da Gama, who landed in Calicut. Being a Roman Catholic, da Gama sent for Catholic missionaries to Romanize the St. Thomas Christians. Archbishop Alexis de Menezes Latinized the Nestorian Christians, and by 1599 the entire St. Thomas Christians were completely Latinized and brought under Roman Catholic supremacy. New doctrines and practices were introduced. The records and prayer books of the old church were burned. Freedom of the Malabar Church was lost. Offended and seriously agonized by these harsh Romanization methods, Archdeacon Thomas mustered a flock of about 25,000 people and marched to the Cochin port to take vengeance against the Portuguese Catholics. Driven back by the imperial Portuguese guns, the St. Thomas Christians withdrew to Matangeri and pledged, "We and our children shall never be under Rome. We are St. Thomas Christians. We are Malabar Christians. We are independent. We are indigenous. We are not Romans, and we do not want Roman Catholicism." Out of the then 116 congregations, 32 stood faithful to the Archdeacon and 84 accepted Roman supremacy. The ancient Malankara Church was thus divided into two branches, Roman Catholics and the Malankara Syrian Christians. Archdeacon Thomas was consecrated as Mar Thoma I, the Metropolitan of the Malankara Syrian Church. In 1665, Mar Gregorius, a bishop under the Jacobite Patriarch of Antioch, arrived in Cochin at the invitation of the Malankara Church. The outcome was that gradually he and his successors led the Malankara Church to Jacobitism. Under the Jacobite influence, the Mar Thoma Metropolitans were given little leeway to exercise authority. Meanwhile, the states of Travancore and Cochin appealed for British help against the invasion of Tipu Sultan of Mysore, and in return made a pact to pay tribute to the appointed British residents. The first of these was Colonel Macaulay, at whose request Claudius Buchanan, a chaplain of the East India Company, came to Travancore in 1806. In 1810 came the second resident, Colonel Munro. A devout Christian, he was disturbed by the dwindling strength of the Christian community. He appealed to the Church Mission Society to send missionaries. The years 1816 to 19 saw the arrival of missionaries, including Joseph Venn and Benjamin Bailey. Bailey got the New Testament translated and published in Malayalam in 1829. In 1836, due to conflicts they had with the Metropolitan Chepat Mar Dionysius, an Anglican communion was formed. In the midst of this, there emerged a prominent and outspoken leader, Palakunnatha Abraham Malpan, the Luther of the Syrian Church, who along with Kaideil Varghese Malpan and a few other leaders, worked relentlessly for the reformation of the Church and to effect changes to conform truly with apostolic and evangelistic traditions. Many deacons and members followed Malpan's reformation methods. This aroused the wrath of the Metropolitan Chepat Mar Dionysius, who excommunicated Malpan. The latter sent his nephew, Deacon Mathew, to the Patriarch of Mardin in Syria to be ordained as Mathews Mar Athanasius in 1843. The Malpan died in 1845. Thomas Mar Athanasius succeeded Mathews Mar Athanasius as Metropolitan in 1877. The Reformation was gaining momentum. The struggle between the two groups ended in a prolonged litigation. At the final appeal at a court of Trivandrum in 1889, two of the three judges decreed that Joseph Mar Dionysius was the rightful Metropolitan. Thomas Mar Athanasius had to leave his abode at the old seminary in Kottayam and the properties there. He transferred his residence to the old Mar Thoma Church, from where he continued his ministry. Thus it was that not only the once united St. Thomas Christians of Malabar had become divided into various communities, but also the Malankara church itself was separated into two sections, one calling itself the Jacobite Church and the other the Malankara Mar Thoma Syrian Church or Malankara Mar Thoma Syrian Sabha. The metropolitans of the Mar Thoma Church have remained faithful to the legacy left to them by Abraham Malpan. Succeeding Thomas Mar Athanasius was Titus I Mar Thoma, who was consecrated as bishop by the metropolitan of the Thoriyur Church at Kottayam Cheriyapalli. During his period, the Syrian Christian Seminary in Tiruvalla and Mar Thoma Seminary in Kottayam came into being. The Sunday School Samajam was established in 1905. A constitution of the church came into force. The period also witnessed the inception of the Malayalam Convention. The episcopate of the next metropolitan, Titus II Mar Thoma, was noted for the remarkable growth of the church in various directions. The Sevika Sangam and the Voluntary Evangelists Association flourished under his fostering care. The Mar Thoma Theological Seminary was established in Kottayam in 1926. The passing of a constitution for the Mar Thoma Church and the bringing into use a tentative taxa, the liturgy of the Holy Communion, though difficult tasks then, were peacefully achieved. Abraham Mar Thoma's reign as the 17th Metropolitan of the Mar Thoma Church was only for a brief period of 4 years, but he had already won recognition as an outstanding leader of the church for over a quarter of a century. He infused new spirit and vigor into the evangelistic work of the church. Evangelize India was his motto. Yuhannon Mar Thoma was installed as Metropolitan in 1947. He inculcated among the people the social implications of the gospel. This took the form of a movement known as Bhu Bhavanadana Prasthanam, for giving land to the landless and homes to the homeless. A significant contribution of the Metropolitan was the logo, Lighted to Lighten, accepted by the church as the symbol of its sacred mission. Mathews Mar Athanasius Episcopa came to be popularly and affectionately known as Kochudiremeni. As the first missionary bishop of the Mar Thoma Church, he did remarkable pioneering work in organizing parishes and new mission fields. His evangelistic ardor and concern for the people in hitherto unreached areas made him forge ahead expansion programs and colonization schemes, besides the establishment of several medical missions and educational institutions. Two of these were the High School Kirilam and the Ashram High School Perumbavur, which he founded and to which he gave personal attention. Today, the Mar Thoma Church is eminently led by the Most Reverend Dr. Alexander Mar Thoma, installed as the 19th Metropolitan in 1976. Dr. Alexander Mar Thoma is noted especially for his evangelistic fervor. The formation and growth of the Development Department for the upliftment of the weaker sections of the community, irrespective of caste or creed, owe much to his inspiration and guidance. Working side by side with the Metropolitan until November 1984 was the late Thomas Mar Athanasius, suffragan Metropolitan. A theological pundit, Thomas Mar Athanasius advocated the continuity of the traditional heritage of the past and translating it to suit the needs of the present. The St. Augustine Study Center in Kottayam was the brainchild of the late Thomas Mar Athanasius. Having served the church with dedication and distinction, Thomas Mar Athanasius was called to eternity in November 1984. The mammoth crowds that lined the route to the final procession and at the funeral site itself speak loudly of the immense popularity and deep affection that the late Tirumeni enjoyed from people of all walks of life and of different races and creeds. And so Thomas Mar Athanasius joins the company of the other great Methrans who had gone to join the Lord before him and who are forever remembered with reverence and affection for the yeoman service they had rendered to the Mar Thoma Church.
കാലം മറച്ച യവനികക്കപ്പുറം ധീരയോദ്ധാക്കൾ വിട പറഞ്ഞു ഭക്തരാം പൂർവ പിതാക്കൾ കൊളുത്തിയ കൈത്തിരി ഇന്നും ജ്വലിച്ചിടുന്നു.
And among the many loyal and devoted sons of the church who dedicated their lives to the Lord's service and causes of the church. The missionary zeal and progressive outlook of these and many others past and present has found expression in many noble activities and has enabled the Mar Thoma Church to spread its wings through the length and breadth of India. The Mar Thoma Church has, during the last 5 decades, widened its frontiers across the seas to Malaysia, Singapore, Middle East, Africa, United Kingdom, continental Europe, United States, Canada, and Australia. The church now has throughout the world a total of 850 churches, 5 bishops, 478 priests, over 200 mission fields, 200 educational institutions, hospitals, charitable organizations, etc. Its membership is around 700,000, scattered in different parts of the world. This vast network is headed by the 19th Metropolitan, the Most Reverend Alexander Mar Thoma, a man with a clear vision, noble ideals, and an indomitable spirit. He administers the Sabha from its headquarters at Pulatin atop SC Hill, Tiruvalla. He is assisted by Right Reverend Philippos Mar Chrysostom, Suffragan Metropolitan. He resides at a Mar Thoma Kendram in Trivandrum. Right Reverend Joseph Mar Irenaeus Episcopa, who caters to the church members outside Kerala. His official residence is the Bhadrasana Kendram in New Delhi. While in Kerala, he resides here at Maraman. Right Reverend Isho Mar Timotheos Episcopa, a young saint selected and called from an ashrama life. His residence, the Herman Aramana in Adur. The Right Reverend Dr. Zacharias Mar Theophilus Episcopa. and his residence, nestled among surroundings of scenic beauty, the Bethel Aramana in Kottayam. And so we come to the administration of the Sabha, which begins with the Episcopal Synod comprising the Metropolitan, who advocates reformation of society through deeds and services. The suffragan Metropolitan, a man with a new approach to theology to attract both young and old. And the Episcopos, one a strong personality from the long line of bishops in a family from Maraman. Another with the potentiality and ability to guide the church to its noble mission, and a third dedicated to the service of the poor and the ideal Jesus for all. And here we have the whole network of the Sabha administration. Pratinidhi Mandalam is the supreme administrative body of the Sabha and the live wire of the administration. It comprises 35% clergy and 65% laymen, who are the elected representatives of the Sabha members. From the Mandalam is elected the Sabha Council, the administrative machinery of the church. Opinions are voiced and problems raised by the members of the Mandalam for the attention of the relevant authorities. The proceedings are sometimes interspersed with humor. A Sabha secretary elected from the Mandalam for a period of 3 years assists the Metropolitan in implementing the decisions of the Mandalam and the Sabha Council. A clergy trustee and a lay trustee, who is also the Sabha treasurer, are also elected likewise. The church is divided into Bhadrasanams or dioceses administered by the Episcopos. They are Niranam Maraman, Kottayam Rani, Trivandrum Quailon, Bombay Delhi, Malaysia Singapore, Madras Kunnamgulam, and Adur Mavelikara. The Episcopos are assisted by the 4 Vicars General, the Very Reverend C.G. Alexander, P.J. Thomas, A.A. Piley, and K.B. Jacob. The Sabha office is situated amidst the vast complex on SC Hill in Tiruvalla. This is the focal point of the entire Sabha administration. In the Sabha office are also kept past church records and minutes. Much of the material contained therein reveal evidences of the ancient connection of the Syrian Church with the Eastern churches. There are 5 main organizations established in the Mar Thoma Church. These are the Malabar Mar Thoma Syrian Christian Evangelistic Association, Sunday School Samajam, Sevika Sangam, Voluntary Evangelists Association, and the Youth League. The Evangelistic Association has pursued relentlessly its devout mission of spreading the gospel, and many have been drawn from other faiths into the fold of the church. Here is one such convert.
1888 സെപ്റ്റംബർ 5-ാം തീയതി ബുധനാഴ്ച ഒരു പട്ടക്കാരൻ ഉൾപ്പെടെ ദൈവഭക്തരായ 12 പേർ കല്ലിശ്ശേരിൽ കടവിൽ അച്ഛന്റെ മാളികയിൽ പ്രാർത്ഥനയ്ക്കായി കൂടിയതത്രേ സുവിശേഷ പ്രസംഗ സംഘത്തിന്റെ അടിസ്ഥാനം. ആശ്രമ പ്രസ്ഥാനങ്ങൾ, ആശുപത്രികൾ, വൃദ്ധമന്ദിരം, വിദ്യാഭ്യാസ സ്ഥാപനങ്ങൾ, അഗതി മന്ദിരങ്ങൾ, അനാഥശാലകൾ തുടങ്ങിയ പ്രവർത്തന മാധ്യമത്തിലൂടെ സുവിശേഷ വേലയുടെ വ്യാപ്തി കണ്ടെത്തിക്കൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്ന സുവിശേഷ പ്രസംഗ സംഘം കാലത്തിനനുസരിച്ചുള്ള പുതിയ കാൽവയ്പുകൾ സൃഷ്ടിക്കുന്നതിൽ താൽപര്യം കാണിക്കുന്നു.
Yes, it was a prayer meeting convened by Kottarathil Thomas Kashisha and 11 others at Kallisheri Maliga a century ago that gave birth to the Malabar Mar Thoma Syrian Christian Evangelistic Association. One of the principal activities conducted by the association annually since 1895 is the Maraman Convention, the world's largest Christian convention. The site of this mammoth event is the bed of the Pampa River. World-renowned missionaries have graced and spoken at the convention year after year. Outstanding among them was the respected Dr. Stanley Jones, whose messages through 20 years have had a powerful and memorable impact. Prominent among present-day speakers are Reverend Dr. A.B. Masalamani and Reverend Dr. Theodore Williams.
വിശുദ്ധ ലിഖിതങ്ങളിലൂടെ കഴിഞ്ഞ ഞായറാഴ്ച തുടങ്ങി ആത്മാവിന് ഹർഷവും ആനന്ദവും സംതൃപ്തിയും പകർന്നുകൊണ്ട് നിമിഷങ്ങളെ തള്ളി നോക്കുന്ന നിങ്ങളുടെ മുമ്പിൽ തികച്ചും സമൂഹപരമായിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു തിന്മയെപ്പറ്റി ആധികാരികമായി തന്നെ സംസാരിക്കുവാൻ ഞാൻ ആഗ്രഹിക്കുകയാണ്.
That the man from the moon came to be with you and tell you that Jesus loves you. Wherever you are, as Colonel Irwin said, God knows where you are.
മണലിൽ തണലും തണുപ്പും കണ്ടെത്തി ആത്മാവിന് ആനന്ദാനുഗ്രഹങ്ങൾ നേടുവാൻ ആയിരങ്ങൾ ആകാംക്ഷയോടെ ദൈവവചനം ശ്രദ്ധിക്കുന്നു. The Lord's message is transmitted by many eminent exponents of the Bible, including the bishops of the Mar Thoma Church. The convention also serves as a forum for the various organizations to report on their activities and progress. Besides prayers and messages, other activities are carried out during the period of the convention. These include the blessing of children and young men. Out of these will emerge the future clergy and lay evangelists of the Mar Thoma Church. Soon the convention comes to an end. It has been an occasion of renewal for the whole church and a spiritual festival for its members. All denominations of the Christian faith view the Maraman Convention as ecumenism in action. The Evangelists Association now has mission fields in numerous places, thanks to the zealous efforts of the many who have continued the noble mission initiated by that group of 12 at Kalliseri Maliga 100 years ago. The Sunday School Samajam owes much to the pioneering efforts of the very Reverend V.P. Marman, who provided a sound foundation as its first General Secretary, and Reverend Dr. K.K. George, his successor, who served the Samajam for 30 years.
സഭയിലെ കുഞ്ഞുങ്ങളുടെ മതബോധനത്തെപ്പറ്റി വ്യക്തമായ ദർശനത്തോടും കാഴ്ചപ്പാടോടും കൂടെ 1905 ഫെബ്രുവരി 25 മാരാമൺ കൺവെൻഷൻ പന്തലിൽ വച്ച് വി.പി. മാമനച്ചൻ തുടങ്ങിയ പ്രഗത്ഭരായ സഭാപിതാക്കന്മാരാൽ ആരംഭിച്ച മലങ്കര മാർ തോമാ സുറിയാനി ക്രിസ്ത്യാനി സൺഡേ സ്കൂൾ സമാജം കേരളത്തിലും ഇന്ത്യയിലും വിദേശങ്ങളിലുമുള്ള ഇടവകകളിൽ രൂപം പ്രാപിച്ചിരിക്കുകയാണ്.
അങ്ങനെ ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ ഇവിടെ നമ്മൾ ഇരിക്കുമ്പോൾ ശാന്തരായിട്ടിരിക്കും. താഴെ നമുക്ക് മനോഹരമായിട്ടുള്ള മണൽ ദൈവം തമ്പുരാൻ തന്നിട്ടുണ്ട്.
Sunday school classes, conducted by capable and knowledgeable teachers, are a regular feature in many parishes of the Mar Thoma Church. This center, established under the Sunday School Samajam in 1972 on an 11-acre site, is the largest Christian education center in Asia. Ideally situated at Charal Mount, Kuriannur, it provides one of the most attractive campsites for children and for the training of teachers. താഴ്വരയിലെ സസ്യശ്യാമളമായ വയലേലകൾ, അവയ്ക്കു മധ്യേ കൂടി വളഞ്ഞു പുളഞ്ഞൊഴുകുന്ന പമ്പാ നദി, സന്ധ്യാവേളയിൽ അറബിക്കടലിൽ മുങ്ങിക്കുളിക്കുന്ന അരുണിമയാർന്ന അസ്തമന സൂര്യൻ, പ്രേക്ഷകർക്ക് ഹരം പകരുന്ന മധ്യകേരളത്തിന്റെ തിലകമായ കുറിയന്നൂർ ചരൽക്കുന്ന്. Next to the principal organizations, the Sevika Sangam, and this is one of its principal establishments, the Vanida Mandiram, founded in Tiruvalla in 1925. A name that is always remembered by the Sangam and the Sabha is Tumbaman Cherudurathil Kandamma. She served the Sangam for over 20 years and was a glowing light and shining example for the ladies of the church. Within the Mandiram complex is the Shelam Bhavan, begun in 1923. Under the watchful eye of its principal, Miss Susie David, the Sevika Sangam is devoted to evangelistic work through the spirit of sacrifice and service by voluntary women workers of the Mar Thoma Church. Women are trained to become efficient and dedicated evangelists. And in this connection, the names of Miss Kellaway and Miss Mariam Samuel are especially remembered for their selfless sacrifices in giving the Mandiram a sound foundation.
1919 ഫെബ്രുവരി മാസത്തിൽ എബ്രഹാം മാർത്തോമാ സഭകൻ മെത്രാപ്പൊലിത്തായുടെ അനുഗ്രഹാശിസ്സുകളോടുകൂടി ആരംഭിച്ച സേവികാ സംഘം ഇന്ന് വിവിധ പ്രവർത്തന പദ്ധതികൾ ആവിഷ്കരിച്ച് നടപ്പിൽ വരുത്തുകയും സഭയുടെ ദൗത്യ നിർവഹണത്തിൽ സജീവമായി പങ്കെടുക്കുകയും ചെയ്തു വരുന്നു. വനിതാ മന്ദിരം, മെഡിക്കൽ മിഷൻ, അനാഥശാലകൾ, വിദ്യാഭ്യാസ പ്രവർത്തനം, ഹോസ്റ്റലുകൾ, വികസന പ്രവർത്തനങ്ങൾ, സുവിശേഷവേല, ആശ്രമങ്ങൾ തുടങ്ങിയ പ്രവർത്തനങ്ങൾ സേവികാ സംഘം ചെയ്തു വരുന്നു.
The Sevika Sangam also provides hostel accommodation for students and working girls.
This is the home for retired workers of the Sevika Sangam who have served the Sevika Sangam at least 20 years consecutively.
That was Miss Mariam Samuel, the superior of the Kuwait home in Nalloor, another of the establishments under Sevika Sangam. And as its name suggests, it was built with financial aid extended by members of the Sevika Sangam of Kuwait, Yadafaga. And here is the showpiece of the Sevika Sangam, the snack bar and showroom at Tiruvalla. And we come to the fourth of the major Sabha organizations, the Voluntary Evangelists Association. And the name that comes readily to mind is Muttampakal Kochunyubadeshi, or Sadhu Kochunyu, a name that lives on in the hearts and minds of Kerala's Syrian Christians. He was the model of the true evangelist. This was his home, where he not only gave refuge to weary travelers, but also spread the Lord's message through sermons and his famous songs, composed in the innocence and spirit of the simple village style. These songs are now daily used in the family prayers in Syrian homes. One such song to console a grieved one.
സഭയിലെ പ്രായപൂർത്തിയായ എല്ലാവരും ആത്മീയ പ്രചോദിതരും സുവിശേഷത്തിന് സാക്ഷ്യം വഹിക്കുന്നവരുമായിരിക്കണമെന്ന ആത്യന്തിക ലക്ഷ്യത്തോടെ 1925 മാർ തോമ സന്നദ്ധ സുവിശേഷക സംഘം ജന്മമെടുത്തത്. മധ്യസ്ഥ പ്രാർത്ഥന, വേദപഠനം, അനുഭവങ്ങൾ പങ്കിടൽ, ഭവന സന്ദർശനം, ആതുര സേവനം, പ്രാർത്ഥനാ യോഗങ്ങൾ, ക്രിസ്തീയതരുടെ ഇടയിലെ സുവിശേഷ ഘോഷണം ഇവയാണ് സംഘം ഇടവക തലത്തിൽ നിർവഹിക്കുന്ന 7 പരിപാടി.
These are a disciple and a grandson of Kochunyupadeshi. Punjamanil Mamanupdeshi was another prominent figure whose name is synonymous with the Evangelists Association. Reverend P.D. Maman is his grandson. AMM Bible Institute in Kumbari, built in memory of Abraham Mar Thoma, provides a 4-month training course for young men in the Bible and personal evangelism, emphasizing the need and importance of the lay ministry in the church. Reverend K.J. Phillip, an ex-Sabha secretary, is still a teacher in this institute at the age of 75. Gospel teams trained at the institute make parish visits and reach non-Christian areas with the Lord's message. And we come to the last, but certainly not the least, of the major Sabha organizations, the Youth League.
സഭയിലെ യുവജനങ്ങളുടെ ആത്മീയ വളർച്ചയ്ക്കു വേണ്ടി ആരാധന, പഠനം, സാക്ഷ്യം, സേവനം ഇവ പ്രഖ്യാപിത ലക്ഷ്യമാക്കിക്കൊണ്ട് 1938 ആരംഭിച്ച മാർത്തോമ യുവജന സഖ്യം ഇന്ന് വളർന്ന് പന്തലിച്ച് സഭയുടെ വിവിധ പ്രവർത്തനങ്ങളിൽ സജീവമായി പങ്കെടുക്കുന്നു. കാലഘട്ടത്തിന്റെ വെല്ലുവിളികളെ മനസ്സിലാക്കി യുവാക്കളെ ക്രിസ്തുവിന്റെ ആളത്വത്തിന്റെ പൂർണ്ണതയിലേക്ക് വളരുന്നതിന് സഹായകമായ പ്രവർത്തന പരിപാടികളാണ് സഖ്യത്തിനുള്ളത്.
Jesus knocks at the heart of every young man and woman, inviting them to bear witnesses to him. One way to heed that call is through meaningful youth activities like the boys' camp and a girls' camp. The year 1983 marked the golden jubilee of the Mar Thoma Youth League. It was celebrated with a mammoth rally in Tiruvalla. Hundreds and thousands of youths from various parishes and centers in Kerala participated in this momentous occasion in the history of the organization and of the Mar Thoma Church. Worship, study, witness, service. These are the aims of the Youth League. Many of these young men and women will hopefully answer Christ's call to be his witnesses and come forward to serve in his vineyard. And beyond the shores of India, in various Mar Thoma centers of the world, the youths of the church are just as alive and spirited in the Sabha's programs and activities. A typical example is Kuala Lumpur, the earliest of the places where the Mar Thoma Church spread its wings outside India. Here the members of the church, with active and enthusiastic participation of the youth, engage themselves in various meaningful activities. There is, for instance, the Mar Thoma Night, which serves as an avenue to demonstrate their artistic talents through music, songs and drama, ranging from the depiction of biblical scenes, as seen here, to present-day realities, like this enactment of an episode entitled One Half of the World. As our story resumes, we make a quick tour of the many other bodies and establishments under the wing of the Mar Thoma Church. Foremost among the educational establishments is the Theological Seminary in Kottayam, established in 1926.
സഭയിലെ വൈദികരുടെ പരിശീലനത്തിനായി 1926 സ്ഥാപിച്ച വൈദിക സെമിനാരി ആരംഭകാലം മുതൽ തന്നെ സെറാംപൂർ വൈദിക സർവകലാശാലയോട് അഫിലിയേറ്റ് ചെയ്തിട്ടുള്ളതാണ്. 1974 BD ഗ്രേഡിലേക്ക് ഉയർത്തി. 1977 CNI ഓർത്തഡോക്സ് സഭയോട് യോജിച്ചുള്ള ഫെഡറേറ്റഡ് ഫാക്കൽറ്റിയുടെ ചുമതലയിൽ MTH കൊണ്ട് CP മാത്യൂസ് സ്മാരക പഠന കേന്ദ്രത്തിൽ എക്യുമെനിക്കൽ പരിപാടികളും അബ്രഹാം മൽപ്പാൻ സ്മാരക പ്രഭാഷണങ്ങളും പുസ്തക പ്രസിദ്ധീകരണവും ആത്മായ പരിശീലന ക്ലാസുകളും സോഷ്യൽ സർവീസ് പദ്ധതികളും കൗൺസിലിംഗ് കേന്ദ്രവും പുരാവസ്തു ശേഖരണ കേന്ദ്രവും ക്രിസ്ത്യൻ മ്യൂസിയവും സെമിനാരിയുടെ പ്രവർത്തന പദ്ധതികളിൽ ഉൾപ്പെട്ടതാണ്.
The Episcopal Jubilee Institute at Kombadi, founded in 1965 as a tribute to Dr. Johannon Mar Thoma and Dr. Mathews Mar Athanasius Episcopa. It gives a 3-year training course for evangelists to be appointed by the dioceses. The Johannon Mar Thoma Study Center in Trivandrum, still under construction, will, it's hoped, become a center of international repute for the use of all the churches to translate the noble ideas and great values cherished by the late Dr. Johannon Mar Thoma, to whom the center is dedicated, for the causes of ecumenism, upliftment of the weak and poor, application of Christian principles in the educational policies, cohabitation with other religious faiths, and so on. The center is fortunate and proud to have as its director Dr. M.M. Thomas, a world-renowned theological pundit to the modern era, a searcher and a researcher of the truth. Approaching the Christian College in Cheganur, started in 1964, now one of the leading institutions in Kerala. While on the subject of education, 2 eminent scholars' names come to mind. Mr. K.K. Kuruvilla, a great educationist and religious pundit, and Mr. C.P. Mathew, a brilliant educationist and also an able politician and member of parliament. We move on to the Mar Thoma College in Tiruvalla, established in 1952. This institution has the distinction of being the first college for the Mar Thoma Church. There is also a similar establishment in Chungattara, built in 1981, which is the first Mar Thoma College in the Malabar area. Realizing the alarming increase in unemployment rate among the educated young, the Mar Thoma Church has set up industrial training centers to provide vocational training. These are the ITC Anchal and ITC Kodanjeri, besides the Mathews Mar Athanasius Memorial Training Center at Mailachal. The St. Thomas College in Kodancherry commenced functioning in 1953, chiefly through the efforts of Kurundotikal K.T. Thomas Kashisha. The Syrian Christian School in Tiruvalla is among numerous schools scattered far and wide that are run under the auspices of the Mar Thoma Church. This school is part of the vast complex of buildings perched on top of SC Hill. Our tour of the Mar Thoma educational establishments brings us to Nicholson School in Tiruvalla, standing majestically on a hilltop surrounded by the natural beauty of central Travancore. Built in 1910 through the noble efforts and services of Miss Nicholson and Miss McCaban, the school proudly meets the aim of this church of producing more and more educated young women of caliber. Right from its inception, Nicholson School has been in the forefront among schools in the state, not only for its high academic standards and impressive results, but also for excellence in the sports and cultural fields. The Mar Thoma Study Center at Pandalam is among similar centers that serve the cause of the student Christian movement of the Mar Thoma Church in imbibing true Christian principles in young men and women. Here, the students of the movement listen to the Right Reverend Iso Mar Timotheus on the basic necessities of life.
What is the greatest thing you want in your life?
The spirit of service and sacrifice prevalent in the Mar Thoma Church finds further expression through its medical missions. The Fellowship Mission Hospital, begun in 1945, was brought under the medical mission of the Mar Thoma Church. With a team of 5 doctors and about 30 staff members, it renders invaluable service to those living in and around Kumbana.
പ്രസംഗിക്കുക, പഠിപ്പിക്കുക, രോഗികൾക്ക് സൗഖ്യം നൽകുക എന്ന 3 കർത്തവ്യങ്ങൾ ഉൾക്കൊള്ളുന്ന നിയോഗമാണ് ശിഷ്യന്മാർക്ക് യേശു നൽകിയത്. ഇത് നിർവഹിക്കേണ്ടത് സഭയുടെ കർത്തവ്യമാകുന്നുവെന്ന് ധരിച്ചതിന്റെ ഫലമായിട്ടാണ് മെഡിക്കൽ മിഷൻ പ്രവർത്തനത്തിന് മാർ തോമാ സഭ തുനിഞ്ഞത്.
The church runs hospitals and medical centers in different places far and wide. The Mission Hospital in Chungattara, Malabar, Jeevan Center for Leprosy Patients in Cochin, Janata Medical Mission, Calcutta, and similar centers in Rani and Malayalam, the Tibetan border, and Angola. The St. Thomas Mission Hospital in Kattanam, built on a property donated by a Mar Thoma benefactor, started from humble beginnings in 1948 to serve the people in the rural areas. It has since grown into a full-fledged hospital with 10 special departments, 25 doctors, wards with 100 beds, a modern lab, and a nursing school. The hospital also provides services through health centers to cater to the community around. Social services are a distinct feature of the Mar Thoma Church. These are carried out through its development department, which includes the Christian Agency for Rural Development, or CARD.
ദുർബല വിഭാഗങ്ങൾക്ക് സാമ്പത്തിക പുരോഗതിയും സാമൂഹ്യ നീതിയും ലഭ്യമാകുന്നതിന് പര്യാപ്തമായ പരിപാടികൾക്ക് നേതൃത്വം നൽകുന്നതിനായി രൂപീകരിച്ചിട്ടുള്ളതാണ് ഡെവലപ്മെന്റ് ഡിപ്പാർട്ട്മെന്റ്. ദാരിദ്ര്യം, സാമൂഹ്യ അനീതി, സാമ്പത്തിക സമത്വം ഇവയെല്ലാം ദൈവനീതിക്കും മനുഷ്യനെ പറ്റിയും സമൂഹത്തെ പറ്റിയും വേദപുസ്തകം നൽകുന്ന വ്യക്തമായ കാഴ്ചപ്പാടുകൾക്ക് നിരക്കാത്തതാണെന്നുള്ള ബോധ്യമാണ് സഭയെ വികസന രംഗത്ത് പ്രവർത്തിക്കുവാൻ പ്രേരിപ്പിച്ചത്.
Talk about the Christian spirit of service and sacrifice, and you can feel and see it at its best here at MCRD in Nalloor. Built on a 32-acre site, acquired through the unstinting efforts of the Sabha, this center carries out the noble but unenviable task of tending to these mentally retarded children and bringing a ray of sunshine into their otherwise mundane lives. Watch these innocent ones at work, and you will feel the unseen hand of Christ touching their gentle hearts. Bless them, and bless the kind souls who shower them with such tender care and affection. The Mar Thoma Church has also established similar centers for the less fortunate in other places. The School for the Deaf in Kasaragod is one. The Mar Thoma Opportunity School in Bangalore is another. They stand as shining examples of the Sabha's belief in the extension of worship to God through serving the unfortunate victims of circumstances not of their own making. Rendering another form of social service is an organization called STARD, the South Travancore Association for Rural Development. Its function is to improve the lot of the backward community through training in trades and extension of financial aids to set up small businesses. Besides STARD, there is also the MSDP, the Mar Thoma Seekers Development Project. The many orphanages and homes for the aged are further evidence of the Sabha's concern for the poor and needy. One such establishment is the Dharmagiri Mandiram in Kumbanad, run by the Evangelistic Association.
ആതുര സംരക്ഷണം ദൈവഭക്തിയുടെ അപരിത്യാജ്യ ഘടകമായി വേദപുസ്തകം വെളിപ്പെടുത്തുന്നത് മനസ്സിലാക്കിക്കൊണ്ടാണ് മാർ തോമാ സഭ അനാഥശാലകളും അഗതി മന്ദിരങ്ങളും നിർമ്മിച്ച് ശുശ്രൂഷ ചെയ്തു വരുന്നത്.
At the Dharmagiri Mandiram, a new building is under construction to be dedicated to the memory of the late Reverend K.E. Umman, popularly known as Kalamannilachan. He was a model leader of the church with an unfaltering faith in God even in times of adversity. He lived to be 100 years of age. The Mundagapada Mandiram in Kottayam is yet another testimonial to the charitable disposition of the Sabha. It is an early experiment of the church in working hand in hand with other churches and organizations to serve the needy. It combines homes for the destitute, homes for the aged, and a hospital, all in one complex. As the day fades into night, the inmates of this mandiram gather in the chapel to sing in praise of the Lord. We arrive at Carmel Agadi Mandiram in Airur. This complex, which contains homes for the different categories of the needy, has seen 32 continuous years of selfless service. The Mandiram for destitutes the ashramam for the aged and lonely, the Baliga Mandiram for orphan children, all speak volumes for the noble task carried out at the Carmel home. Besides the mandirams we have seen here, the Mar Thoma Church has also established mandirams in various other places, namely the Ravi Varma Agadi Mandiram in Trichur, the similar homes in Palkat, Chattannur, Anaprambal, Sihora, North Karnataka, and in Angola. The social concerns of the Mar Thoma Church extend to providing land for the landless and homes for the homeless. This is done through the Bhubhavanadana Prasthanam, a brainchild of the late Dr. Yuan Horn Mar Thoma. The Mar Thoma Church has a very efficient publications department. News of all activities concerning the Sabha comes through the Malankara Sabha Taraga. Its first editor, Mr. K.N. Daniel, an able exponent of the Reformation principles, brought new life and vigor into publication at the beginning of the century. The TAM Book Depot is presently housed in a modern building where officially approved church books, records, and other literature are available.
Mar Thoma സഭയുടെ പൊതുവായ ഉപയോഗത്തിന് എപ്പിസ്കോപ്പൽ സിനഡ് അംഗീകരിക്കുന്ന പ്രാർത്ഥന പുസ്തകങ്ങളും ഇതര പുസ്തകങ്ങളും സഭാംഗങ്ങൾക്ക് വിശ്വാസാചാരങ്ങൾ സംബന്ധിച്ച് വിവേകപൂർവമായ ജ്ഞാനം നൽകുന്നതിനും വ്യക്തിപരവും സാമൂഹികവുമായ ക്രിസ്തീയ ജീവിതത്തിന്റെ വളർച്ചയിൽ അവരെ സഹായിക്കുന്നതിനുതകുന്ന പുസ്തകങ്ങളും രചിക്കുന്നതിന് പ്രസിദ്ധീകരിക്കുന്നതിന് പ്രസിദ്ധീകരണ സമിതി ശ്രമിച്ചു വരുന്നു.
The TAM Press prints the publications of the various organizations of the church, namely Suvisesha Dudam of the Evangelistic Association, Sandarshani of the Sunday School Samajam, Vanida Bodhani of the Sevika Sangam, Sannesham of the Voluntary Evangelists Association, and Yuvadibam of the Youth League. The Department of Sacred Music, set up in 1968, is the youngest organization of the church. Its first director was Reverend K.P. Phillip, a talented singer whose melodious voice has thrilled the Sabha and its members for nearly 4 decades. Its present director is Reverend V.M. Mathew. Let's take a brief look at a recording session. The list of churches and countless other establishments of the Mar Thoma Church is too lengthy to bring all of them into our story. A quick look at some of them may suffice. Many Mar Thoma churches have schools run by the Sabha built adjacent to them, like in Idayaramulla, for example. There are repeated calls by the Sabha authorities to keep the places of worship and their surroundings spotless and clean. The church at Manganam is an example of how this call can be heeded. One of the early English medium residential schools established in the 1950s, the St. Thomas School in Trivandrum, the capital of Kerala, stands today in the forefront of the Sabha schools. Its extensive and well-equipped buildings, including modern labs, infirmary, recreational and numerous other facilities, provide the incentive for parents overseas to send their children to this institution, to come under the care of a dedicated team of teachers, where the children's character, personality, as well as their academic efficiency are carefully nurtured in a Christian spirit and atmosphere. നവീകരണത്തിന്റെ തറവാടായ മാരാമൻ മാർ തോമ പള്ളി. East meets west in this modern architecture, a pride among the many churches, the St. Thomas Church, Koranjeri. And these are some of the Mar Thoma churches outside Kerala. The Mar Thoma Church actively participates in the programs of the World Council of Churches, Christian Council of Asia, the National Council of Churches India, and the Kerala Christian Council. It is in full communion with the Anglican communion all over the world and has a special relationship with the CSI and CNI, with which the Mar Thoma Church has a joint council. The Sabha also works in harmony with the authorities and members of other Christian denominations, as well as of other faiths and religions. Many of the early Mar Thoma churches bear in their structure and decor Elements of the ancient Indian culture, like the Chenganur Pazhaya Palli we see here. The Pumugam, roof, ceiling, and even lamps are akin to those in temples. The church and its membership grow and expand, there is an increasing need to replace old churches with new ones, expand existing ones, or build new places of worship. An example is the new church at Ilandur, where right next to the Pazhaya Palli stands the newly completed Valiya Palli. We were fortunate to be around to record the dedication ceremony of the new church. Just as churches take new shapes and forms in the physical sense, so too do people's cultural life and habits change over a period of time. For example, see the revolution in the dress habits of the Syrian Christian ladies. Chandi എന്ന ചെറുക്കനും ഏലി എന്ന പെണ്ണും കൂടിയുള്ള കെട്ട് ആ കാലഘട്ടത്തിൽ നിന്നും പുതുയുഗത്തിന്റെ പുലരിയിലേക്കുള്ള പുരോഗമനം. The priest's cassock too has undergone considerable change over the years. And on the subject of priests, the Sabha is proud of its clergy, a devoted, dedicated and educated team through whom the policy, doctrine, social needs and worship of the church are effectively carried out. Which brings us back to where we began our story. The members of the Mar Thoma Sabha are enthusiastically involved in the various aspects of worship. This includes the sacraments which are given meaning and value by the word of God. We shall begin with baptism.
Alexander Abraham George Mamodisa Mudigapadunu Besmorabu.
The sacrament of baptism is a mark of entrance to the visible church and a sign of union with Christ. The child receiving the sacrament is thereby initiated into the fellowship of Christ's holy church. The minister exhorts the parents to bring up the child in the true doctrine of the church and faith in Lord Jesus Christ. Next comes confirmation. The Eastern churches accept the Muron service, which is performed during the baptism service. The child receiving the sacrament receives the Holy Spirit and grows in the strength of the Spirit. The sacrament of confession is administered during the communion service. The Mar Thoma Church adheres to the biblical understanding that Christ has given the authority and power to his church and its ministers to absolve the faithful of their sins through forgiveness and absolution. The Kurbana, or Holy Communion, is the sacrament instituted by Christ at the Last Supper when he distributed bread and wine to his disciples as symbols of his body and blood and commanded them, "Do this in remembrance of me." The Mar Thoma Church believes that in the Holy Eucharist, Christ offers himself to the believer and the believer enters into communion with him. Wedding and family life are the basic features of the life of the Church. The basis of marriage as a sacrament is Christ's command. They are no more two but one flesh. What God has joined together, let no man put asunder. God invites the husband and wife to partake with him in his great act of creation. This relationship is unbreakable.
ആഹാരത്തിൻ്റെ കൂട്ടായ്മയ്ക്കും എല്ലാ ദാനങ്ങൾക്കായി ഇതിനെ സ്തുതിക്കുന്നു. ഇത് വാഴ്ത്തി അനുഗ്രഹിക്കണമേ. നന്ദിയുള്ളവരായി ജീവിച്ച് തിരുഹിതം നിറവേറ്റുവാൻ നിങ്ങളെ ശക്തീകരിക്കുകയും ചെയ്യണമേ.
The ceremony of the dedication of the house purifies the home and provides it with a true Christian identity. It is with a fervent prayer that it will become the temple of God that the members of the household take part in his meaningful service. The sacrament of ordination marks the entrance of an individual to the ministerial service of the Church. One who has the conviction of God's call goes through a period of training and is ordained as priest by the bishop laying his hands on him. The ordained priest takes the oath that he will ever be obedient to the metropolitan and the episcopas of the Church, that he accepts the Holy Bible as the authority of his faith and believes in all the Church's sacraments and articles of faith enshrined in the Bible, that he agrees with the Church constitution and accepts its practices and traditions. The life on earth of every human being must come to an end. The funeral service emphasizes the belief and hope that the transient human life is related with life eternal, that death is not an end but a beginning to a new and glorious new life, that it is a call by Christ to reign with him forever, and that we will have a reunion one day with our dear departed ones in heaven.
ഞങ്ങളുടെ വർഗത്തെ കുറിച്ച് അരുളി ചെയ്തവനായ ദൈവമേ, ഒടുവിലത്തെ ദിവസത്തിൽ നിത്യജീവനായി ഉയർത്തെഴുന്നേൽക്കുന്ന പ്രത്യാശയോടുകൂടെ ഈ ശരീരത്തെ ഞങ്ങൾ മണ്ണിലേക്ക് ഏൽപ്പിക്കുന്നു. പിതാവിന്റെയും പുത്രന്റെയും ജീവനും വിശുദ്ധിയുള്ള റൂഹായുടെയും തിരുനാമത്തിൽ തന്നെ.
The life and witness of the church are to be expressed through the life of personal commitment of all its members to God, corporate worship, fellowship and brotherhood, and response to the contemporary challenges for the fulfillment of the Christ's mission on earth. We look back so that we may look ahead. The communion service is coming to an end, and so is our story drawing to a conclusion. The faithful are ready to receive the final benediction.
പാപപരിഹാരം ചെയ്തിരിക്കുന്നതായ കർത്താവിന്റെ നിന്ന് നിങ്ങളിൽ പ്രാപിച്ചിരിക്കുന്ന വാഴ്വുകളോടും അനുഗ്രഹങ്ങളോടും കൂടെ വിശുദ്ധിയും മഹത്വവും നേതൃത്വത്തിന്റെ കൃപയ്ക്കും അനുഗ്രഹങ്ങൾക്കും നിങ്ങളെ ഞാൻ ഫലമേൽപ്പിക്കും. ഈ സമയം സമാധാനത്തോടെ നിങ്ങൾ പോയി.
Restored to the St. Thomas heritage and to the original purity of the gospel, reformed with a wider vision and concept and a progressive outlook, dedicated to the apostolic, episcopal traditions and ancient practices, spirited to move with the changing needs of the modern society, Mar Thoma Church can proudly proclaim that it is a worshipping church, a praying church, a witnessing church, a serving church, a caring church, a sharing church. The 19th Metropolitan, the Most Reverend Dr. Alexander Mar Thoma, from the Malankara Simhasanam in Pulatin, Tiruvalla, exhorts you. My Lord and my God. May this be the confession of all members of the Mar Thoma Sabha ever.